Before she became a legend, she was the woman who made Rome tremble. Kings desired her, empires feared her, and every man who loved her lost everything. This is the story of Cleopatra, the queen who turned beauty into power, love into war, and her name into immortality. Turn off the lights and step carefully into the world of shadows, mysteries, and forgotten legends. But before the story begins, subscribe, leave a like, and join the Whitebeard Stories journey. Now, let the story begin. Cleopatra was not born into peace. She was born into a kingdom already bleeding from corruption, betrayal, and fear. Ancient Egypt, once the richest civilization in the world, had become weak under the rule of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Rome watched Egypt like a hungry wolf, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. In 69 BC, Cleopatra entered this dangerous world as the daughter of Pharaoh Ptolemy XII. Unlike many royal children raised only for luxury, Cleopatra grew up understanding that survival depended on intelligence. She studied languages, politics, philosophy, and diplomacy. While others relied on servants to speak for them, Cleopatra learned to speak directly to different nations herself. She could charm scholars, soldiers, merchants, and kings in their own language. Even as a child, she understood one terrifying truth. In royal families, love was weaker than power. When her father died, Cleopatra was only 18 years old. According to Egyptian tradition, she was forced to marry her younger brother Ptolemy XIII, so they could rule together. But Cleopatra had no intention of sharing real authority. She wanted absolute control over Egypt. Her intelligence and confidence frightened the royal advisors surrounding her brother. Soon, a silent war began inside the palace. The advisors convinced Ptolemy XIII that Cleopatra wanted to destroy him. Her face disappeared from official documents. Her enemies removed her name from public prayers. Finally, Cleopatra was forced to flee Egypt completely. She escaped into the desert with only a few loyal followers while her brother took the throne. Most people would have accepted defeat. Cleopatra prepared for revenge. At that exact moment, Rome itself was drowning in civil war. Julius Caesar, the most powerful man in Rome, arrived in Egypt while chasing his enemy Pompey. Cleopatra realized this was her only chance to reclaim the throne. Legend says she secretly entered Caesar's palace wrapped inside a carpet or linen sack so she could avoid her enemies. Whether the story is perfectly true or not, it captured the essence of Cleopatra's character. She understood that dramatic moments create unforgettable power. When Caesar met Cleopatra, he did not simply see beauty. He saw ambition, intelligence, courage, and political brilliance. Cleopatra knew how to speak to powerful men without appearing weak before them. She knew how to turn conversation into strategy. Their alliance changed history. With Caesar's military support, Cleopatra defeated her brother's forces. Ptolemy XIII drowned while escaping battle in the Nile. Cleopatra reclaimed Egypt's throne and became queen once again. But victory came with a price. Her relationship with Caesar became both political and deeply personal. Cleopatra gave birth to a son named Caesarion, whom she believed could unite Egyptian and Roman power together. For a brief moment, she imagined building a dynasty strong enough to resist Rome itself. She traveled to Rome and lived there openly while Caesar ruled the republic like a king. To Romans, Cleopatra was fascinating and terrifying at the same time. Some admired her intelligence and elegance. Others feared her influence over Caesar. Rumors spread everywhere. Many Romans accused her of trying to control Rome through seduction. Then everything collapsed. In 44 BC, Julius Caesar was assassinated by senators inside the Roman Senate. One moment, Cleopatra stood beside the most powerful man in the world. The next moment, she stood alone. Rome exploded into chaos again. Cleopatra immediately returned to Egypt, knowing that staying in Rome could mean death for both her and her son. Back in Egypt, Cleopatra focused on protecting her kingdom. She strengthened the economy, stabilized food supplies, and reinforced political alliances. But Rome continued growing stronger. Another Roman leader soon entered her life, Mark Antony. Antony was completely different from Caesar. Caesar was cold, strategic, and disciplined. Antony was emotional, passionate, impulsive, and driven by glory. When they first met in Tarsus, Cleopatra arrived on a magnificent golden barge dressed like the goddess Isis. Music filled the river, while servants burned expensive perfumes through the air. Antony expected a queen. Instead, he encountered a performance designed to overwhelm him psychologically. And it worked. Their relationship quickly became one of the most famous romances in history. But it was never just romance. Cleopatra and Antony needed each other politically. Antony needed Egypt's wealth and support for his military campaigns. Cleopatra needed Antony's armies to secure Egypt's independence. But over time, politics transformed into genuine love. They spent years together, had children, celebrated lavish festivals, and built a world that seemed almost separate from Rome itself. Antony began adopting more Egyptian customs and spent less time acting like a Roman statesman. To his enemies in Rome, this was unforgivable. The young Roman leader Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, used Antony's relationship with Cleopatra as propaganda. He claimed Antony had become a slave to a dangerous foreign queen. Rome was told that Cleopatra wanted to conquer the empire and destroy Roman traditions. Cleopatra understood the danger immediately. This was no longer just political rivalry. It was psychological warfare. Octavian turned Rome against them step by step. Fear became his greatest weapon. Finally, war became inevitable. In 31 BC, Antony and Cleopatra faced Octavian's forces in the famous Battle of Actium. It became one of the most decisive naval battles in history, but the battle ended in disaster. As chaos spread across the sea, Cleopatra's ships suddenly retreated. Antony abandoned the battle and followed her. Historians still debate why it happened. Some believe it was panic. Others believe it was part of a failed strategy. Whatever the truth was, their defeat destroyed everything. Octavian invaded Egypt. Antony realized the war was lost. Believing Cleopatra had already died, he stabbed himself with his own sword. Mortally wounded, he was carried to Cleopatra, where he died in her arms. For Cleopatra, the world had ended, but even in defeat, she refused humiliation. Octavian planned to capture Cleopatra alive and parade her through Rome as a symbol of conquest. For many rulers, survival would have mattered more than pride. Not Cleopatra. She had spent her entire life fighting to control her destiny. She would not become a trophy. In 30 BC, at the age of 39, Cleopatra chose death. According to legend, she allowed an asp serpent to bite her, though historians still debate the exact method. What matters is not how she died. What matters is why. Cleopatra understood something most rulers never learned. Power is not only about armies or crowns, it is about controlling the story people remember after you are gone. Rome won Egypt, but Cleopatra conquered immortality. More than 2,000 years later, her name still survives while countless kings, generals, and emperors are forgotten. She was seductive, but also strategic, romantic, but ruthless, intelligent, but human. And in the end, Cleopatra achieved the one thing every ruler secretly desires. She became impossible to forget. If you enjoyed tonight's story, subscribe, leave a like, and return for the next tale hidden in the shadows. Until next time, keep the lantern lit